The Thornbirds, 1983, was more than just a TV miniseries. It was a cultural phenomenon that captured the hearts of millions with its powerful storytelling and unforgettable performances. The cast became household names, admired for their on-screen chemistry and emotional depth. But as the years passed, many of the stars faced personal battles far from the spotlight. In 2025, over 40 years since the series first aired, we take a heartfelt look at the lives of the cast then and now. From fame and success to heartbreaking losses and quiet struggles, their real-life journeys are filled with unexpected twists and tragic turns you never saw coming. Richard Chamberlain, born on March 31, 1934, portrayed Father Ralph de Bracassart in The Thornbirds in 1983 at the age of 49, delivering one of his most emotionally charged performances as the conflicted priest torn between ambition and forbidden love. Though Chamberlain rose to international fame in the 1960s as television's Dr. Kildare, he found his career often hindered by the necessity to conceal his identity in an industry that punished honesty. Behind the camera, Chamberlain lived a life riddled with solitude and fear, his long-term relationship with actor Martin Rabbit kept secret for decades. He never married, never had children, and often expressed regret over the emotional toll of hiding his true self. Though he maintained a polished exterior, Chamberlain suffered several mental health crises in silence, struggled with the rejection of his conservative family, and at times withdrew from the public eye entirely due to severe anxiety. In the 1980s, his health declined amid stress and self-imposed isolation. Once a Hollywood heartthrob, he later spoke about being haunted by the hollow praise of a world that never really knew him. Richard Chamberlain passed away on March 29, 2025 at 91 years old, having spent his final years a reclusive life in Hawaii, mostly alone and out of the spotlight. Christopher Plamer, born on December 13, 1929, stepped into the role of Archbishop Vittorio Contini Vercese in The Thornbirds in 1983, at the age of 54. The Archbishop was portrayed as a worldly and astute churchman, embodying wisdom and political finesse, serving as both mentor and foil to Father Ralph. Plamer's storied career was marked by his portrayal of complex, authoritative men, though he often lamented being remembered primarily for the sound of music, a role he notoriously disliked. Despite his distinguished legacy on stage and screen, his life was marred by bitter estrangement from family, particularly his daughter, actress Amanda Plamer, with whom he had a strained and distant relationship. Married 3 times, he battled alcoholism throughout much of his early career, which contributed to the dissolution of his first 2 marriages. His personal life was peppered with regret, missed connections, broken trust, and long nights of remorse. He often confessed to feeling alienated, even at the height of his fame, and his late-life reflections revealed deep dissatisfaction with the hollow applause of stardom. He suffered from loneliness and increasing frailty in his later years, worsened by the loss of lifelong friends and companions. Christopher Plamer died on February 5, 2021, at the age of 91 due to complications from a fall. Jean Simmons, born on January 31, 1929, took on the role of Fiona Fee Cleary in The Thornbirds in 1983 at the age of 54, bringing a haunting quietude to the steadfast matriarch whose grief was etched into every wrinkle of her face. Fee was a woman broken by circumstance yet defined by endurance, a mother who suffered silently, sacrificing her own desires for the sake of family. Simmons' life mirrored her character's anguish. A star from a young age in British cinema, she was thrust into Hollywood under intense pressure. Her first marriage to actor Stuart Granger was marked by jealousy and verbal cruelty. Her second, to director Richard Brooks, ended in mutual disappointment and deep emotional scars. She had 2 daughters, Tracy and Kate, but struggled to balance motherhood with a career that left little room for healing. Jean quietly battled alcoholism for years, drinking to escape the deep loneliness that accompanied her fame. A victim of industry exploitation and personal betrayal, she often said she felt more like a vessel than a woman. She was tormented by depression, regret over her lost youth, and the disintegration of her once promising film trajectory. Friends noted that she would often weep in private, her sadness cloaked behind polite smiles. Gene Simmons passed away on January 22, 2010, from lung cancer at the age of 80. Earl Hollyman, born on September 11, 1928, took on the role of Luddy Mueller in 1983 at the age of 55, embodying a man of quiet integrity who provided emotional grounding for those around him. Hollyman's career, though once adorned with promise after a Golden Globe win for The Rainmaker, slowly dwindled into obscurity, with later roles fading into the shadows of his former glory. Despite a few appearances in popular shows like Policewoman, he never regained the acclaim of his early years, watching as younger actors overtook him while he grappled with irrelevance and the sting of being forgotten. In his personal life, he never married, and though he adopted a son named Michael, their relationship was fraught with distance and misunderstanding, culminating in years of estrangement. Hollyman often spoke of loneliness, retreating into a life devoid of companionship and plagued by insomnia, survivor's guilt from his time in the Navy, and the gradual onset of dementia that blurred the memories he cherished most. Twice institutionalized in his later years due to delusions and paranoia, he was found wandering in downtown Los Angeles in 2017, disoriented and alone. He passed away on November 25, 2024 at 96, having lived in a care facility for aging actors in Woodland Hills. Piper Laurie, born on January 22, 1932, portrayed Ann Mueller in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 51, crafting a character full of quiet empathy and unwavering support, a rare figure of compassion in a world plagued by suffering. Laurie, however, carried her own anguish behind the scenes. After an early start in Hollywood, she rebelled against the studio system's control, resulting in years of professional exile. She married critic Joe Morgenstern in a union that dissolved into emotional disarray. They had one daughter, and Grace, but the marriage ended in divorce after years of disconnection and buried resentment. Laurie endured sexual assault early in her career, a trauma she revealed decades later, and it cast a long shadow over her self-worth. Though she found acclaim in films like Carrie and Children of a Lesser God, Piper often struggled with feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness, exacerbated by Hollywood's obsession with youth and appearance. She retreated from the spotlight multiple times, citing mental health struggles and profound exhaustion. In recent years, her health has severely declined, and she now resides in a care facility, largely forgotten by an industry she once helped shape. She passed away October 14, 2023 at 91 years old, having lived with advanced dementia and chronic pain, visited infrequently. Brian Brown, born on June 23, 1947, began portraying the fiery and opportunistic Luke O'Neill in 1983 at the age of 36, playing a man whose ambition and rugged charm masked a manipulative and ultimately loveless heart. Luke, who weds Maggie out of convenience more than affection, represents a tragic misalignment of love and desire. Despite starring in numerous Australian and international films like Breaker Morant and Cocktail, Brown never quite escaped the shadow of his performance in The Thorn Birds, which became both a blessing and a lifelong burden. His career floundered in the 1990s amid accusations of on-set aggression and struggles with alcohol, and several directorial projects ended in failure, causing deep financial and emotional tolls. His marriage to Rachel Ward, though celebrated, was tumultuous, shaken by long separations, infidelity rumors, and Ward's near-nervous breakdowns that left Brown emotionally exiled in his own home. Their son Joe battled substance abuse for years, and Brown blamed himself publicly, stating he had failed to protect his family from the pressures of fame. In 2007, he narrowly survived a stroke, and in the years that followed, he became increasingly reclusive and embittered, rarely seen in public. In 2025, he is 77, living in quiet obscurity on a remote estate, reportedly suffering from chronic pain and bouts of depression. Jon Delancey was born on March 20, 1948, and began his role as Alistair McQueen in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 35. Alistair McQueen was a figure of sophistication and ambiguity, a character whose polished surface masked deeper personal conflicts and secrets, traits that Delancey brought to life with unsettling nuance. His career was long associated with cerebral or aloof roles, most notably his portrayal of Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation, yet this success came at a personal cost. Delancey married actress Marnie Mosiman in the early 1980s, and though the couple stayed together, theirs was a turbulent relationship plagued by infidelity and conflicting career ambitions. They had 2 sons, but one was diagnosed with schizophrenia at age 19, leading to years of hospitalizations and public scrutiny. Jon struggled with the guilt of prioritizing work over family, especially during his son's mental health crises. In 2008, a severe car accident left him with chronic pain and a limp that halted stage work. In 2014, he was briefly hospitalized for exhaustion and depression after collapsing during a convention. He has also been open about his battle with hearing loss, a gradual decline that limited his voice acting opportunities. As of 2025, Delancey is 77 years old and lives in quiet seclusion in Pasadena. He still records the occasional audiobook but avoids public appearances. Barbara Stamwick, born on July 16, 1907, portrayed Mary Carson in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 76, lending an icy and commanding gravitas to the wealthy, manipulative woman whose twisted affection for a priest drives much of the story's torment. Orphaned at the age of 4 and raised in a series of foster homes, Stamwick's early life was filled with abandonment and trauma. Though she became a formidable force in cinema, starring in classics like Double Indemnity and Stella Dallas, her success came at the expense of personal fulfillment. She married twice, first to Frank Fay, a union plagued by his alcoholism and abuse, and later to Robert Taylor, a relationship riddled with emotional distance and rumored affairs. She never had biological children and was estranged from her adopted son, who later publicly denounced her. Behind her sharp gaze was a woman plagued by decades of isolation, working herself relentlessly to avoid confronting the emptiness at home. Friends spoke of her preference for silence over conversation, whiskey over warmth. By the late 1980s, illness had consumed her, but she refused treatment, preferring to die in solitude. Barbara Stamwick passed away on January 20, 1990, at the age of 82 from congestive heart failure. Rachel Ward, born on September 12, 1957, portrayed Maggie Cleary in 1983 when she was 26, delivering a performance that would define her career and immortalize her in the hearts of viewers worldwide. Maggie, torn between desire and duty, embodied the pain of unfulfilled love and the haunting echoes of what could never be, a role so emotionally taxing it reportedly left Ward sleepless during filming. Though she later starred in Against All Odds and directed indie films, Hollywood gradually turned its back, branding her too difficult and too somber for the glamorized female leads of the late 80s. Her marriage to co-star Brian Brown in 1983 brought public fascination, but privately they faced profound struggles: infertility, emotional distance, and the suicide of Brian's brother, which fractured their relationship for years. They had 3 children, Rosie, Matilda, and Joe, but Ward admitted in later interviews that motherhood only briefly silenced her deep-seated feelings of worthlessness and anxiety. She battled an eating disorder in the late 1990s and spent 2 years in therapy for unresolved trauma from a sexual assault early in her modeling career, which she had kept secret for decades. In 2025, at age 67, she lives a secluded life in New South Wales, running a sheep farm and avoiding press engagements. Barry Corbin was born on October 16, 1940, and took on the role of Pete in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 43. Pete was a stoic, grounded presence amid the emotional turmoil of the Cleary family saga, often acting as a moral compass without ever imposing judgment. Corbin, a Texan through and through, had a robust start in westerns and tough guy roles, but he struggled with typecasting throughout his career. Despite earning accolades for his work in Northern Exposure, his career faltered in the 2000s due to a combination of health issues and industry ageism. Corbin married twice. His first marriage ended in divorce after his wife left him for a younger actor, and his second wife died of breast cancer in 1991. He has 4 children, but 2 are estranged. One son, deeply troubled, has been in and out of rehab for decades, while Corbin's daughter from his second marriage moved to New Zealand and maintains only occasional contact. A major stroke in 2006 severely affected his speech, prompting a long and painful recovery process. He also lost his ranch due to mounting medical bills. In 2011, a bout of depression and anxiety led to several months of seclusion and speculation about his mental health. Today, in 2025, he is 85 years old and resides in an assisted living facility in Lubbock, Texas. Bill Murray, born on December 19, 1919, played Angus McQueen in 1983 when he was 64 years old, stepping into the shoes of a stoic and laborious man whose moral compass was unwavering in the face of social conflict. Angus, though not central to the plot, stood as a testament to the working-class resilience, never asking for much and expecting even less. Murray's career had the quiet dignity of a journeyman actor, countless small roles, bit parts in TV series and commercials, and the unglamorous life of someone always just outside the spotlight. His most visible role, perhaps, was in Death Race 2000, but his face was more recognizable than his name, and the anonymity gnawed at him. His marriage to fellow actress Marjorie Holt collapsed in the 1970s after years of resentment and his growing dependence on alcohol. They had one daughter, Christine, whom he alienated through outbursts and absences, leading her to cut ties. Murray spent his last decades in relative isolation, plagued by financial instability after poor investments and unpaid taxes left him nearly bankrupt. He suffered a minor stroke in the mid-90s, followed by an eviction from his modest North Hollywood apartment. By 2002, he was bedridden and barely coherent, subsisting in a county nursing home. He died on December 10, 2003, at the age of 84, from complications related to severe osteoporosis. Alan N. McLary, born on December 1, 1926, stepped into the role of Mrs. Smith in 1983 at the age of 57, bringing warmth and gravitas to a character who served as a comforting presence amidst the saga's emotional tempests. Mrs. Smith, with her quiet observance and maternal instincts, brought subtle strength to the storyline, a character that, like McLary herself, was often underestimated but indispensable. Though she had early success as a Broadway dancer and later in films like They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, McLary's career was repeatedly derailed by intense stage fright and chronic health issues that began in her 30s. Despite being married to actor George Gaynes, their union was riddled with tension due to Gaynes's frequent infidelity and professional jealousy. They had 2 children, but tragedy struck when their son Matthew died from a heroin overdose in 1981, plunging McLary into a deep depression from which she never fully recovered. In the following years, she suffered from panic attacks, reclusiveness, and a nervous breakdown that resulted in a 6-week hospitalization. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in the early 2000s, her final years were spent in silence, wheelchair-bound, and mostly uncommunicative. Alan N. McLary passed away on May 21, 2018, at the age of 91, from complications of the disease. Stephanie Farace was born on January 1, 1952, and stepped into the role of Judy in The Thorn Birds in 1983, beginning her performance at the age of 31. Judy was a burst of energy in an otherwise somber narrative, vibrant, optimistic, and gently humorous. She served as a counterbalance to the dark undercurrents that plagued the Cleary family. Farace's early career flourished briefly with appearances in television comedies and light-hearted roles, including The Great Outdoors in 1988, but she found herself typecast as the quirky sidekick. The heavier, dramatic roles she longed for eluded her. She never married. Her long-term partner of 9 years, screenwriter Paul E., left her in 1995 after years of failed IVF treatments took a toll on their relationship. Her dream of motherhood remained unfulfilled, and she often referred to the time as a silent grief. Farace lost both parents in a tragic car accident in 1997, an event that led to a prolonged period of depression. In 2004, she underwent surgery for ovarian cancer, which, though successful, left her physically and emotionally scarred. A devastating house fire in 2012 destroyed her home and memorabilia from her acting days, pushing her further into isolation. As of 2025, she is 73 and lives in a small rental apartment in Santa Monica, relying on a modest Screen Actors Guild pension. Brett Cullen was born on August 26, 1956, and took on the role of Bob Cleary in The Thornbirds in 1983, when he was 27 years old. Bob Cleary is portrayed as the steady, self-effacing brother whose gentle demeanor and loyalty often go unnoticed in the shadow of his more tumultuous siblings. Cullen's career began with promise, with his role in The Thornbirds gaining him visibility. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, his career was marked by inconsistency, and while he had recurring parts in shows like Falcon Crest and guest spots on dramas, major film roles evaded him. He married actress Carla B. in 1986, but the relationship was riddled with infidelity and emotional distance. Their only daughter, Elena, was born in 1989, but the couple separated soon after. The estrangement from his daughter, who moved abroad with her mother, left Cullen haunted by guilt and regret. Family ties fractured further when his younger brother died of an overdose in 1995, a tragedy for which he unfairly blamed himself. The shame of a bankruptcy filing in 2002, brought on by failed real estate investments, deepened his despair. In 2016, he suffered a mild stroke, limiting his mobility and curtailing acting opportunities. Now in 2025, at age 69, he lives alone in a modest home in Houston, Texas, occasionally mentoring aspiring actors via Zoom but rarely venturing into public life. John Friedrich was born on March 15, 1958, and portrayed Frank Cleary in The Thornbirds in 1983 at the age of 25. Frank Cleary was the family's tortured soul, a man torn between his inner rage and an aching desire for belonging, ultimately embodying the most tragic arc of the Cleary children. Friedrich's own trajectory mirrored that torment. After The Thornbirds, he had a brief period of critical acclaim with roles in gritty dramas, yet fame remained fleeting. Disillusioned with Hollywood, he abruptly vanished from the industry in the mid-1980s, retreating into anonymity. He had fallen in love with a costume designer named Rachel during the filming of a short-lived TV drama, but she left him for a producer just weeks before their wedding. The heartbreak spiraled into substance abuse and self-imposed exile. He never married and never had children. By the 1990s, rumors swirled that he was living in a desert commune under a pseudonym. He emerged briefly in the 2000s, working as a youth counselor in upstate New York, but an accusation of inappropriate conduct, though never proven, forced him back into obscurity. In 2013, he suffered a mental breakdown that led to a year-long hospitalization. Now 67 years old in 2025, Friedrich remains a ghostly figure, his identity rarely acknowledged, his once promising career a flicker in the rearview mirror of American television. Who is your favorite character from The Thornbirds? How do you feel knowing that some of the actors have passed away? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this content, please remember to like, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss future videos. Thank you so much.